Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is another edition of Pinch Hit Friday. We've got two of our coaches from Cressey Sports Performance Florida who are collaborating to do this week's podcast. Brandon Hollop serves as a strength conditioning coach at CSP Florida. And prior to completing his CSP internship in the spring of 2023 and pitching internship in the summer of 23, he was a pitching coach at the high school level for 6 years. He's also coached college ball and been involved with 10 to 13U athletics on their pitching mechanics. With certifications in strength conditioning, corrective exercise, and personal training, he's worked as a sports performance coach in the private sector, and as an athlete, he pitched at each Stroudsburg University for 4 years. Spencer Stockton, who's previously hosted some Pinch Hit Fridays for us as well, serves as a pitching coach at CSP. He's originally from West Palm Beach and played his college baseball at Jacksonville University. He then went on to play with the Cincinnati Reds organization's first 6 years, making it as high as AAA. These guys do an awesome job with our high school athletes, certainly with our pro guys as well. But today's is really going to be focused a lot on what we do with those younger populations. As the podcast is titled Low-Hanging Fruit for High School Athletes, I think there should be some really good actionable items here that you can apply, whether you're a coach, a player, or a parent. So we're in for a good one.
Eric, thanks for having us on today. We're just going to jump right in, and Brandon and I are going to talk about the easiest areas for improvement that we see in most amateur baseball players, and specifically, high schoolers. So, Brandon, start us off. What's the one thing that you think every high school baseball player can do right now that's going to provide the greatest return on their investment in their career?
We're going to talk about the weight room. I believe that's the first thing we're going to discuss today. You should be at least getting 2 to 3 days of lifting in a week. Now, when a lot of guys come in for evaluations, they tell us they don't have enough time. In our views, we believe you can get a solid training session in 30 to 40 minutes, a relatively short training session.
All right, so a 30-minute lift, let's say I'm new to the weight room. I've never stepped foot in one. Where do I begin? Like, am I doing, barbell bench press? Am I doing, a 2.5-minute plank? Like, what's a good program starting point?
So yes and no to what you just said. Now, if your lift is looking like it's mainly just curls, abs, bis, and tris, very one-dimensional, you're not going to see a lot of those exercises transfer onto the field. Now, if we're talking about some exercises that are going to help you in your sport, that will help transfer onto the field, we're going to look at the dumbbell goblet front squat, the dumbbell bench, landmine rotational press, suitcase carry, dead bugs, and etc.
Yeah, so those are just obviously some basic examples. And I think the cool part about social media, not just ours, is that there's baseball-specific lifts kind of everywhere, Instagram, on Twitter, whatever. So I know we certainly upload a lot of them, and that's probably a good starting point. But, you kind of talked about, exercises transferring onto the field. Is that like in a rotational aspect? Like, what are you referring to specifically with baseball?
Yeah, rotational power is definitely something that we're talking about here. Now, yes, it's also great to be strong in the weight room with other exercises, but rotational power is a big one that I believe is going to help translate onto baseball the best. Now, exercises including that are going to be a lot of med ball work, and you could really do that anywhere. You can find a wall to throw into, right? You don't need a lot, and I believe throwing med balls are going to help translate from the power that you use in the weight room and help transfer it onto the mound.
Perfect. So, let's say you have a high school athlete just starting out in the gym. He's doing everything you're asking him to do twice a week, 3 times a week. What is the next step in terms of like outside the weight room to maximize those results?
I believe that's going to be recovery, diet, and hydration. I think that's that's up there with the weight room. Those are 2 of your probably more priority topics that we're addressing right now.
All right. So let's start with diet. What do you see from a strength conditioning perspective where high school athletes get diet wrong?
Number one, guys don't eat enough. They don't eat enough calories. They don't consume enough calories throughout the day. I mean, I know you definitely see it with guys when you're working with them, the pitchers, and I know I definitely see it when they come in for evals. A lot of times parents say that their kid eats a lot. I'm pretty sure they don't. When your son's 130 pounds, and I don't believe you're probably eating enough, right?
Yeah, I think I can touch to that as well. I mean, we've had countless interviews together or evals together where we're sitting there and we're asking a kid what he had for breakfast, and it's 11:30 in the morning, and he's like, "Oh, I had a Pop-Tart," or "Oh, actually, I didn't wake up in time to have breakfast." And so, if you think about it, your last meal was call it safe 8 p.m. That was dinner, and it's now 11:30. I mean, that's a substantial amount of time that you haven't had any, a single calorie. And if you're trying to gain weight, you really shouldn't be going more than 4 or 5 hours during the day without eating. And we have guys that come in here 10, 12, even 14 hours on the extreme end without having any food, and your body is going to start to burn, and that's what you're trying to avoid. So I know you have a pretty good quote that is it's my favorite one, but what do you got?
If you want to train like a pro, you can't feel your body like a toddler.
Yeah, that's a good one. And moving on to fueling your body, I know a good one that I like, an example for young guys is, Russell Wilson. He's a guy who's been in the NFL forever. And he spends $1 million a year on his performance team, and that performance team includes 2 full-time traveling chefs. So wherever Russell Wilson goes in the country, wherever, out of the country, these guys follow him and prepare meals for him to make sure that his body is ready to handle any type of workload. And, that's a guy that's been a quarterback in the NFL. He's not a punter. He's taken hits and he's taken a beating, and he's done it for a long time with very minimal injury. So, I think that's pretty important. And then, the last part about, outside the weight room you want to touch on is probably hydration and sleep, if you want to talk to that.
Yeah, hydration and sleep are also huge with these two topics. Now, the hydration part, we're not just discussing about when you're in game or at practice and you're drinking your fluids at practice or in game. This applies to what you're doing in the morning, in the middle of the day, and even after your game or practice, right? Now, all these things are very important of adequately hydrating yourself, so our body is going to feel the best when we're trying to perform.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And then, I can touch on the sleep part. It's, I remember one of my first times training at CSP as an athlete. I remember there was a strength coach that told me, like, if you're not out sleeping and out hydrating the competition, you're not going to outperform them. And I think that's the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of guys is, are you getting 8 hours of sleep? Are you making sure you're hydrating? And especially with the younger athletes who are trying to, maybe get a PR in velocity or whatever, they think that ripping an energy drink right before getting on the mound is what's going to get them over that edge. And most times it's not the energy drink that makes you throw hard. It is, is your body ready to handle that load of throwing hard? And so if you think energy drinks are the answer, then you need to reevaluate that strategy. So, and then moving on, I'd like to talk about like time commitment required to be an elite athlete, right? So everybody wants to be a big leaguer. Everybody wants to play college baseball, but, are people making the necessary sacrifices to do so? And so, from your side of things in strength conditioning, can you kind of touch on maybe some of your experiences or observations about some of the sacrifices that you see our younger athletes especially have been making here in the weight room?
Yeah, I mean, to go off of that, it's a lot of guys to come in here and you have to be willing to make sacrifices, right? You have to be willing to say no to your friends to want to go hang out with them on a Friday night after school, right? We got to realize, like, this is going to be what we're going to be doing. We're going to be setting time aside to get that workout in on Friday, or being able to get adequate sleep on that Friday night so we can come in and train or go into our game or practice and have enough energy to get through the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can tailor that to a lot of our big league guys as well. They play a full big league season, and that ends in late September for a lot of guys. And come October 1, we have 20, 30 big leaguers already in the gym in the beginning of October, and they're here 6 days a week for the entirety of the off season. And them getting to the big leagues or them being on the all-star team or whatever it is, that's not an accident. It doesn't happen by chance. I mean, these guys work incredibly hard, and it's kind of cool for some of our high school athletes who can get in here and see some of these guys that they idolize or they watch on TV and see how hard they work. And, a lot of times it fuels that fire for them. So I think time commitment and sacrificing some of that time is incredibly important for our younger guys to kind of learn some discipline. And, and then to wrap everything up, all three of these things, weight room, diet and hydration and sleep, and then, being disciplined enough to make time sacrifices, those are all important. But to get the most out of your career, you're going to have to do all three of these things extremely well, especially from a young age. And the faster you start to develop that discipline and you learn these things, the better chance you have of making it to where you aspire to make it. So Eric, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun talking about these topics.
This episode is brought to you by First Form, an awesome supplement company with a comprehensive product offering that I enjoy using myself and with our athletes. Beyond the broad product line they offer, I also love First Form's commitment to ensuring that their products are the highest quality. They meet NSF certified for sports standards for both consistency and purity. Their Formula One protein powder is the best tasting option I've had in over 20 years in the fitness industry, and they've got several great flavors to choose from. I also lean on their creatine monohydrate to support hard training, their collagen for joint health, their magnesium to help with sleep quality, and their fish oil for a variety of health benefits. Our daughters and I also share a love for their high-protein meat sticks, which have become a big hit in the Cressey household for school lunches and on-the-go protein options as we head to gymnastics and softball practices. Of course, First Form products also have been really popular with our athletes at Cressey Sports Performance, and they're used by some of the top-performing athletes and most recognizable sports franchises in the world. Above all, the people at First Form are top-notch, and that's a rarity in an often unethical business. First Form is dedicated to empowering people on their fitness journeys, and that dedication is matched by only their unwavering commitment to exceptional quality and unparalleled customer service. Check them out for yourself at www.firstform.com/Cressey. That's 1stphorm.com/CRESSEY and get free shipping on your order of $75 or more. Additionally, they're offering amazing 10% more than your money back guarantee if you're not fully satisfied with your purchase. Again, that's firstform.com/Cressey to get free shipping on your order of $75 or more.